I was sent to guard you, and I was sent to destroy everything you believe in. I knew 3 things the moment I stepped into the estate. 1. The man I was supposed to protect wasn't human. 2. This was no ordinary assignment. 3. And the mirrors were all missing. The foyer was cathedral-like. Tall ceilings, glass skylights that let in stormlight rather than sunshine, and a floor that looked like polished obsidian. But what struck me most was the silence. Thick, intentional silence, like the house itself was holding its breath. The woman who let me in, mid-40s, sleek bun, suit sharper than mine, spoke in clipped tones. "Mr. Ciro is expecting you. He's in the atrium. No names, no handshake. Just a nod and a pivot, leading me through halls painted in bruised blue and ash gray. No photographs, no reflections. Just shadows that followed a little too close. He was standing by the glass wall when I entered, hands in his pockets, watching the storm gather over the distant hills like he'd ordered it. Ciro, at least that's what the file said. Full name unknown. Net worth incalculable, no criminal record, no digital footprint before 2010. And yet, everyone in the security world had heard the name whispered like a riddle no one wanted to solve. I stepped forward, military posture instinctive. "I'm Damian Reyes. I was sent to guard you." He didn't turn. His reflection should have been in the glass. It wasn't. His voice was velvet and steel, and I was sent to destroy everything you believe in. I stared at him, the hairs on the back of my neck rising. "Excuse me?" Now he turned, slowly, deliberately, and smiled. Not the arrogant smile of the rich or the bored. No, this was something else, older, measured, like he knew how I'd react before I did. "That's a joke, Damian," he said lightly, waving a hand. "Of course." He paused. "Unless you believe in lies." The atrium felt like a dream someone built with too much money and not enough humanity. The ceiling was glass, the trees inside were real, and the walls too smooth, too seamless reminded me of containment chambers. He gestured toward a minimalist chair. I sat. He didn't. "Let's skip the pleasantries. You're ex-military, tours in Syria and Yemen, discharged honorably, 3 years in private security, 2 attempted resignations, 1 lost partner." My jaw tightened. That last one wasn't in the file. He tilted his head. "You think I only read what they give me?" The room went colder. Or maybe I did. A flash of memory hit, smoke screaming and Connor's voice over the radio fading. "I'll cover you, get the hell out, D." I blinked it away. "I hire protectors, Damian, not babysitters. You will follow me, not hover. You will observe, not interfere. And you will not, under any circumstances, ask me what I am." I kept my expression neutral. "Are you dangerous?" "Only if you try to cage me." Lynn appeared in the doorway like a warning bell in heels. "Mr. Ciro, the board meeting." "But," I said, "cancel." Her gaze flicked to me, sharp and full of disdain, like she already didn't trust me and had no plans to start. After she left, I looked back at him. "Your assistant doesn't like me. She doesn't like most people, especially those with guns and good posture. You know I carry? I know everything I need to." He moved toward me, and for a moment I thought he was going to sit. Instead, he reached for a decanter of wine, and poured himself a glass of something deep red and entirely too symbolic. "Don't sleep much," he said casually. "I expect you won't. I've had worse assignments." He sipped, then locked eyes with me. "I wonder if you'll still say that when you realize the house isn't the only thing with no reflection." That night, I walked the perimeter. The rain hadn't started yet, but the air had that metallic weight like the sky was chewing on electricity and didn't know when to spit it out. I checked my gun twice, not because I was nervous, because my instincts wouldn't shut up. I'd seen a lot of things during my time in the military. I'd chased shadows, talked men out of madness, dragged dying bodies across fire-slicked dirt. But this was new. My client didn't breathe loudly. He didn't sweat. His eyes didn't adjust to light. He never blinked. And worst of all, He made me feel like the one being watched. Later I stood at the end of the corridor, staring at a wall where a mirror had obviously once hung. The nails were still in place. The space around them was cleaner than the wall. Someone had removed them recently. "Why? Is it your reflection that frightens you?" I muttered. "No," came his voice from behind me. I didn't flinch, but my hand did hover near my belt. He stepped beside me, hands clasped behind his back. "It's not my reflection that's dangerous," he said softly, "it's yours." I don't usually hear silence. Of night the world murmurs, pipes hum, wood settles. But this house, it was still. It was 2:30 a.m. when I passed by his study and saw the light under the door. Again. Second night in a row. No music, no screen glow, just candlelight. I paused, considered leaving it, but my curiosity was beginning to gnaw at discipline's edges. I knocked once, twice, then entered. He didn't even look up. Ciro sat cross-legged on the floor in the center of the room, a single candle before him. The flame danced, unnaturally steady. Books lay open around him, old books, their spines worn, pages browned and marked with symbols I didn't recognize, some Latin, others just not of this world. He spoke without turning. "You're up late, so are you." "Correction," he said calmly. "I'm always up." I leaned against the doorframe watching him. "Don't sleep, or can't. I find it inefficient, and candles are more efficient than lights?" He smiled faintly. "Candles remind me what light looks like when it's trying to survive." I didn't answer. There was no point. He finally looked up. The candle's glow flickered in his pupils, but not like it does in normal eyes. In his it didn't reflect. It was absorbed. Like darkness pretending to be warm. "You're wondering," he said, "why I sit in silence at night, why I read dead languages, why I keep this house as empty as a cathedral no one prays in." "You're not that hard to read." "No," he agreed, "but I'm harder to understand." I spent the next morning in the guest wing's office, combing open source intel and private databases. If I was going to protect him, I needed to know what I was dealing with. Ciro's official birth records didn't exist. No driver's license, no school enrollment, no hospital ID. Just financial records from 2010 onward, each one pristine, powerful, and boringly perfect. Too perfect. But buried in a digitized military archive from 1917, I found a photograph. A black and white field image. A group of men in uniform. And there he was. Same face, same smirk. The caption read, "Captain Elijah Blackridge, 1897. Same cheekbones. Same eyes. Same everything." Either he had a great-great-grandfather with identical genetics, or I was working for a man who hadn't aged in over a century. Later that evening, I found him in the library, or what I assumed was a library. Honestly, it looked more like a crime scene designed by a philosophy major. Dark wood, high ceilings, faded leather chairs, and a fireplace that hadn't seen a match in years. But tonight, it was lit. Ciro stood in front of it, one hand outstretched, palm up, like he was warming it, but the fire wasn't flickering, it was floating. A thin ribbon of flame hovered just above his hand, unmoving. No crackle, no smoke, no heat reaching the rest of the room. I must have made a sound, because he said without turning, "It's not real fire, not the way you know it. And what way do you know it?" He let the flame curl higher, spiral like a strand of silk, then finally let it dissolve mid-air. "Fire doesn't destroy," he said. "It reveals. It shows what remains when everything false has burned away." "You like talking in riddles," I muttered. "You like pretending you don't understand them." I sat across from him, letting the firelight play across my boots. He poured us both a drink, not wine this time, whiskey, old, smooth, and quietly lethal. We sat in silence for a while. No clocks ticking, no TV buzzing, no LA noise, just the sound of flame and thoughts. Then he asked, "How much evil are you willing to protect, if the paycheck is big enough?" It was so soft, so simple, I almost missed the weight of it. I stared at my glass. "I've protected worse." The evil you're guarding is smarter than you? More patient. I met his gaze. You calling yourself necessary? Not for your sake, he said, but for theirs. He pointed out the window, toward the world. The ones who think there's still a line between good and bad. Someone has to keep the scale balanced, Damian. And humans, they're not great at balance. I narrowed my eyes. So what are you, some divine referee? He didn't answer. Just sipped his whiskey and stared into the fire. Eventually I stood. I needed air. Space. Something real. As I turned to go, he said quietly, "You think I'm the threat. You're not exactly making a case for sainthood." "I'm not a saint. Saints need belief to exist." "Then what do you need?" He looked up at me. "Choice," he said. "The one thing I was never given." I couldn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but because something inside me had cracked open. A door to questions I hadn't asked since I left the military. Since Connor died. Was I just another blade in someone else's hand? Was I capable of choosing who deserved to be protected? At 4 a.m. I went to the basement. Lynn had mentioned once that the lower floor had restricted access. But I had my ways. The code wasn't hard to guess. Birth year of Elijah Blackridge did the trick. The lab wasn't like the rest of the house. It was clinical, steel counters, LED lights, shelves of machinery and strange glass containers. But what made my skin crawl was this. None of the tech was working. No hum, no blinking lights, no input response. Screens were black. And as I stepped closer to one of the terminals, the moment my shadow crossed the table, every sensor died. Like they were rejecting me. Or rejecting him. Before I could examine further, a voice came from behind me. "You're not the first to snoop down here. Ciro again." I turned. "And the others?" He smiled, but there was no humor in it. "They didn't make it past the third shelf." I raised an eyebrow. "And me?" "You're curious," he said. "Curiosity's more interesting than obedience." I looked back at the useless machines. They don't work when you're near them. Most things don't. Mirrors crack. Batteries drain. People get twitchy. "Because you're a demon?" He tilted his head, amused. "I never said that. You didn't have to." He walked past me, running a hand across the cold steel of the table. "I know what it's like to lose someone and live longer than you should," he said, so low I almost didn't catch it. I didn't speak. I didn't move. He wasn't looking at me anymore. Just at some invisible point far beyond the wall. "Sleep is for people who believe tomorrow might be better," he whispered, and for the first time since I met him he looked tired. The call came just after midnight, encrypted, untraceable. I knew the source before I picked up. "General Harper, Reyes," his gravel voice barked. "You still breathing?" "Unfortunately for some," I muttered, sliding the earpiece in and stepping out onto the rain-damp balcony. Ciro was downstairs, no doubt meditating on the secrets of fire again. "You're in position?" Harper asked. "Affirmative. Good. Upload coordinates tomorrow, 0600. We'll move fast." My fingers curled against the railing. "You said recon. You never said extraction." "I'm saying it now." Silence. I stared out at the hills, dark waves against a darker sky. Below, the glass walls of the house glowed softly, as if the place was breathing without its lungs. "You want me to hand him over? I want you to do your damn job. That thing isn't your friend. It's a walking anomaly with enough power to screw the equilibrium of 3 continents." The view. And yet he's sipping vintage whiskey, and Harper didn't laugh. "Monsters can wear suits. Hell, you wore one for a decade. Upload the coordinates, then walk away." "That's an order." The line cut. I didn't move. Morning came in silver streaks, no sun, just that washed-out gray that made everything feel two-dimensional. I found Lynn in the kitchen. She was arranging fruit into neat, obsessive patterns. Apples, then oranges, then something expensive and unpronounceable. "You're early," she said without looking up. "Didn't sleep. Funny. Neither does he." I leaned against the island. "You knew what he was, from the beginning. Everyone who lasts more than 3 weeks here does. She sliced through a fig like it had insulted her ancestors. Some pretend it's normal, some run, some try to save him, and you? My eyes cold, clear, unflinching. I keep him moving. That's loyalty. That's logistics, she said. Then softer, he's not human, but he's better than most of them. I studied her face. The tiny twitch when she said them. You saw what he can do. I did, and you're still here. I am. Why? She didn't answer. Just pushed the fruit tray toward me and walked out. I spent the afternoon in the gym, not working out, just burning, pacing, stretching, running every conversation through my head until the words blurred into static. Orders, loyalty, judgment, all of it twisted into a knot I couldn't loosen. When I first met Harper, he saved my career, pulled me out of the fire literally, and gave me a purpose. Now he wanted me to turn in a man who hadn't hurt anyone. A man who sure didn't blink and could levitate fire, but who also knew the pain of loss, who poured drinks at 3 a.m. for a soldier who couldn't sleep. I was halfway into a set of push-ups when the memory came. Gunfire. Connor screams in my ear, "Damian, fall back now!" But I didn't fall back, I charged forward. I saw red, I lost time. When they pulled me out, I was covered in someone else's blood. Connor was gone. And I had no idea how it happened. That feeling, the blackout, rage, the helpless heat, it came back when I looked at Ciro. Because I understood him. I saw what he could become if he stopped trying. I saw myself. That night, I found him in the solarium. He was barefoot, lying on a chaise like a bored prince, flipping through a book that looked like it hadn't been printed since the plague. "Me guess," he said without looking up. "They called." I didn't answer. "You've got that betrayed by the government look. Is that so easy to spot? On you?" "Yes." He turned a page. It's like watching a statue realize it was built hollow, room, and stood over him. "They want me to send you're not surprised." "I'm never surprised." He closed the book. "But I am disappointed. In them? In you. That stung more than it should have. Do you think I want to sell you out? I think you're wired to follow orders, even if they're written in ash." I looked away. "I didn't come here to betray you." He stood slowly, every movement elegant, like he didn't bend so much as unfold. "Then don't." Outside, the air had changed. He noticed it first. We stepped onto the balcony. The night was quiet. Too quiet. The crickets had stopped. Then I saw it. A flicker of red, across the distant hill, then gone, infrared. "We're being watched," I said. Ciro's jaw tightened. "Your friends arrived early." I reached for my comm. "Don't," he said. "Let them watch. Let them wonder, but I'm tired of hiding." And for a moment the wind shifted. I smelled it. Smoke, ash, something old waking up. He turned to me. "Next time they aim, don't get in the way." I met his gaze. "That's not happening." He studied me for a long beat. Then, almost too quiet to hear. "Then you're already part of the fire. We weren't supposed to be out." The meeting was off book, last minute, necessary according to Ciro. I didn't like it. Not because of the man, but because Ciro wanted to go alone. I insisted. He relented. Barely. The car was black, unmarked, quiet. Ciro rode in the back with one leg crossed over the other, fingers tapping the edge of his phone with precise rhythm. He looked like a bored executive on his way to fire someone gently. I rode passenger seat, eyes forward, watching the skyline melt into hills. The house was halfway up Mulholland. Glass walls, too open. No blind spots except the one someone planned to be blind. My instincts were screaming. "I don't like this," I muttered as we pulled up the drive. "You don't like many things," Ciro replied lightly. "That's why I like you. I'm serious. Something's off. I'm aware." He stepped out of the car anyway. We walked toward the house. The door was ajar. No greeting, no host, just silence, and then the red dot. My heart jumped before my body moved. Down. I shoved Ciro sideways just as the crack rang out. The shot missed him. Hit me. Liquid lightning through my shoulder. I dropped to one. A second shot. Closer. I fired blind toward the ridge. Suppressive. Useless. Ciro grabbed my good arm. Move. We sprinted behind the car, ducked low. My head spun from blood loss. He looked down at me. For the first time since I met him, he looked afraid. Damian. Still here, I choked. Barely. His hand hovered over the wound. I can stop it. I didn't ask what it was. I just nodded. He pressed his palm to my shoulder, and everything stopped. The pain didn't fade, it froze. Like someone paused reality itself. I couldn't move, could barely breathe. And in that stillness I heard it, his voice, not speaking, not whispering, but resonating, like something ancient calling through stone and marrow. Words I didn't understand. Words my body did. When the light behind my eyelids dimmed, I gasped and pulled away. The bleeding had stopped. The wound was still there, torn fabric, bruised skin. But no blood. Ciro exhaled shakily. I haven't done that in a long time. You speak Latin? I rasped. That wasn't Latin. We sat in the back seat, engine off, city lights glimmering below. Ciro tore strips from his own shirt, carefully bandaging me with surgeon's steady hands. Who was it? I asked. I don't know. Could have been Harper. Could have been someone worse than a general with a god complex. He met my eyes deadpan. Have you met hedge fund managers? Despite the pain, I laughed. Brief. Bitter. He wrapped the final strip, then paused. His fingers lingered just a moment too long. I felt the heat of him even through the bandage, like his hands ran hotter than skin should allow. Why'd you do it? He asked. What? Take the bullet. For me. I didn't answer. Couldn't. The words were too heavy in my throat. His hands slid to my jaw, gentle, intentional. He leaned in, and the air thickened between us. His forehead nearly touched mine. I could feel his breath. Smelled like night and spice and something just slightly wrong. Not human, he said softly. I'm not safe, you know, I know, and still. His lips brushed mine, a kiss, a question. One I didn't know how to answer. But I didn't pull away. We drove back in silence. No radio, no thoughts I wanted to admit. My shoulder throbbed, but not from pain, from memory, of warmth, of his voice, of that moment that almost became something else. The corner onto the private road, I knew something was. The gate was open, the lights inside the house were flickering, glitching like a bad video feed. Ciro hit the brakes. We stepped out cautiously. I drew my gun, useless as it felt. Lynn, I called. No answer. We moved through the entryway, glass shards underfoot. One of the mirrors I didn't remember hanging was now shattered. The living room was wrecked. Chairs overturned. Curtains torn. No blood, no signs of struggle, just absence. Lynn, I shouted again, louder. Ciro stood in the center of the room, still as death. His voice was low. She's gone? Gone where? He didn't answer. His hands clenched, and then quietly the lights dimmed, on their own. We checked every room, the guest wing, the upstairs study, the lab. Her purse was still here, her keys, her phone. But no Lynn. No signs of force. Which meant... She left willingly, I said aloud, not wanting to believe. Or she was taken by someone who knows how to make it look like she did. I looked at him. Is there anyone who could do that? Ciro didn't blink. Yes. Who? He turned away. And that's when I realized this wasn't a sanctuary anymore. It was a target. And we were already too late. Back in the study, I slumped onto the couch, shoulder aching again now that adrenaline had left the party. Ciro stood by the fireplace, hands behind his back. You're bleeding again, he said. I'll live. You always say that like you're daring someone to prove you wrong. I smiled grimly. Maybe I am. He turned. His eyes weren't glowing. Not tonight. They were just tired. You protected me, he said quietly. Even when you didn't have to. You're not the monster they think you are, and you're not the soldier they want you to be. A long silence stretched between us. What now? I asked. His answer came without hesitation. Now we stop running. Was built before the war, maybe even before the idea of. Ciro had found it buried beneath layers of forgotten forest. half swallowed by ivy and moss. A relic of something ancient, repurposed into something that just barely resembled safety. But even here, the shadows didn't feel like protection. They felt like waiting. I sat on the cold stone bench, gun across my lap, trying not to bleed into the cracks. The shoulder wound had reopened during the drive. Ciro had warned me, but I wasn't about to let him patch me up again with whispered spells and glowing hands. One miracle per man. He stood a few feet away, staring at the wall, not blankly, purposefully. Etched into the stone, barely visible in the lantern light, were symbols, some circular, some jagged, all impossible to look at too long without getting dizzy. Demonic, I said finally. Yes, you write them? No, he murmured. I remember them. He turned to me then, and the way the light hit his face made him look less like a man and more like a painting of one faded edges, too perfect, almost unreal. Made to be seen, Damian, he said. I was made to balance. I waited. He'd never spoken like this before, not even close. There's a line, he continued, between creation and destruction, between justice and cruelty, between what people deserve and what they can endure. When someone crosses it, I appear. Who sends you? He gave a soft, bitter laugh. Who do you think? You call it fate. Heaven, hell, doesn't matter. I'm not a judge. I'm the correction. I swallowed. So you kill people. Sometimes. He looked down at his hands, flexed his fingers like he was feeling for something that wasn't there. But I haven't done it in years, not since I realized. He trailed off. Realized what? That balance doesn't require death. Just choice. A knock echoed through the narrow corridor, sharp, metallic. We both froze. I raised my gun. Ciro didn't move. It's just a delivery, he said after a moment. I was expecting something, in the middle of nowhere? He shrugged. When you know the right demons, Amazon Prime becomes rather flexible. No one stood there, just a black box on the threshold, no return address. Only my name, written in red marker. I brought it inside. Ciro watched me place it on the table like it might bite. Inside, a folder, a drive, a note. 3 words in Harper's handwriting. He's expendable now. Return immediately. Or you're next. I clenched the paper in my fist. The folder contained satellite photos, thermal signatures of the bunker. They knew where we were. They'd been watching for days. The drive? A playback from a familiar voice. Tell Harper I want full pay up front, the man said. Coordinates transmitted. And tell him next time he wants Reyes cleaned up, send someone else. I knew that voice. Jared Monroe. Former unit, former friend. The man who dragged me out of burning wreckage once, and now sold me for a wire transfer. Ciro watched me like he was waiting for something to crack. It did. I threw the folder across the room. Of course, I muttered. Why not? Everyone's for sale. Not you. Don't, I snapped. Don't tell me who I am. I've been lied to enough this week. Then lie better, he said evenly. Because whatever it is you're trying to hide behind that anger, it's not working. I stared at him, heart pounding. I took a bullet for you, and I stopped the world to keep you alive. Silence pulsed between us. Then I said it. But I hadn't let myself think out loud. They were never here for you, were they? Ciro looked away. They were here for me, he nodded. You weren't just hired to protect me, Damian, you were bait. A convenient tool with a predictable sense of honor. Then why keep me around? He stepped closer, slowly. Because despite what they thought, despite what I thought, you didn't do what they expected. You didn't turn me in. You didn't run. I stared at him. And because, he added softly, I've spent a long time alone pretending I don't need anyone. His eyes searched mine. I don't want to keep pretending. We didn't kiss, not then. But something in the air shifted, something final, a thread tied between us no longer thin. I set the trap that night, tripwire at the north entrance, remote charges along the ridge. I used every trick the military taught me, and a few I'd picked up from watching Ciro manipulate pressure points in the air itself. He stood beside me as I checked the last detonator. "You know this won't stop them for long. I just needed to buy us time. To go where? You said you were tired of serving." He nodded. "Then let's stop." They came at dawn. Drones first. Then boots on the ground. 5 men. Monroe among them. I watched through the cracked security cam. He smiled as he stepped through the door, right onto the pressure plate. I pressed the trigger. The blast echoed through the trees like thunder. We were already moving out the back exit, gear in tow, new IDs in pocket, and no more questions left unanswered. We didn't speak until we were miles away. The sun was rising, burning through the mist. Ciro glanced at me. "You burned the bridge." I nodded. "Didn't like that one anyway." He smiled, and for the first time it reached his eyes. The safe house was barely more than a cabin. No power grid, no cameras, no signals, just wood, fire, and the kind of silence you only find where maps blur into myth. It smelled like pine and dust. Ciro said it had once belonged to someone before memory. I didn't ask who. Some things you let stay ghosts. The first few days blurred together. Wound care, rationed sleep, half-burned meals. My shoulder throbbed like it was arguing with my bloodstream. But I was alive. Because of him. And because of me. We didn't talk about the explosion. Or Monroe. Or the folder. We just existed. Quietly. Side by side. It was enough. Until the dream started. The first one came on the 3rd night. I was standing in a city I didn't recognize, tall stone arches. Buildings wrapped in ivy. Streets made of polished black rock. The air shimmered with heat, and the sky was orange with fire. There were screams. And him. Not Ciro as he is now. But something older, tall, cloaked, glowing from within like coals in a dying furnace. He walked through the chaos, untouched by falling stone and flame. And beside him me. But not me. Armor, scars. A name I couldn't remember. We didn't speak in the dream. But I knew one thing with absolute certainty. I followed him into hell, willingly. When I woke, the fire had gone out. But Ciro was sitting near it, legs folded, watching the embers like they owed him answers. "You were talking in your sleep," he said. "I don't remember what I said. You called me ashen." I froze. "I don't know what that means," I said quietly. He nodded once. "I do." Later, when the stars came out sharp and endless above the pines, we sat outside on the porch. My shoulder had finally stopped aching. The air smelled like something wild and healing. He passed me a cup of something warm, something vaguely herbal and not entirely unpleasant. And then, without prompting, he spoke. "You weren't just a soldier," he said. "Back then, back when?" He glanced at me, one corner of his mouth twitching. "Before this life. Before names like Damian or contracts or bullets. You believe in reincarnation?" He looked back up at the sky. "I don't believe. I remember." I sipped slowly. Let the silence stretch, then asked, "What was I?" His voice was soft, but not weak. "You were my anchor." I turned to look at him. "Anchor?" Every time I was about to go too far, every time I thought balance meant fire and ending and silence, you stopped me. Just by being. He leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. "They made you forget. They always do. Because someone like you, who remembers what I am but chooses to love me anyway. That's dangerous." That word love landed between us like a drop. But neither of us moved to stamp it out. "I've spent most of my life not knowing who I was," I said. "Trying to be what other people needed. A weapon, a shield, a name on a file." "You were more than that," he said. "Even then." I looked at him. At the soft rise of his chest, the quiet undercurrent of his presence, the way his eyes didn't glow anymore but still carried too much light. "You don't scare me," I said. "You should, but I don't, I know." He turned toward me, and for once there was no smirk, no veil, just him. "I've lived 1,000 years pretending I was meant to destroy things," he said. "Because that's what I was told. Because that's what I was used for. But you..." His voice caught. He exhaled. "You remind me I'm allowed to want something else." "Like what?" He didn't answer. He leaned in, slow, sure, measured. And this time there was no hesitation. His lips met mine, warm, steady, and real. No fire, no magic. just breath, just us. When we finally pulled apart, he rested his forehead against mine. No more pretending, he whispered. No more contracts, I replied. He smiled. And for the first time since this all began, it felt like we were finally beginning something. Together. We called it Equinox Solutions. Balance for hire. That was the pitch. Private security for unusual cases, clients with problems that didn't make sense on paper. Clients who weren't always human. Clients who knew the world wasn't fair, and still wanted to live in it. We rented a quiet office space in Silver Lake, old exposed brick. Plants I kept killing and Ciro kept secretly replacing. One glass wall, one espresso machine, and a receptionist who used to be a banshee with anger issues. She's lovely now. Mostly. Ciro stopped hiding. He got himself a pair of sunglasses, black, designer, impractical. People trust a man who hides behind fashion, he'd said. He started posting on Instagram, not selfies, quotes, jokes, cryptic captions over grainy photos of alleyways and broken clocks. His bio? Restoring equilibrium, one meme at a time. Somehow, it worked. Lynn came back. We didn't ask where she'd gone, she told us anyway. He found me, she said, meaning Harper. Offered me a deal. I smiled, agreed, then burned the contract. Now she ran operations. Still wore suits, still organized files with terrifying efficiency. But there was something gentler in her voice these days. Like the edges had dulled. Not from defeat, but from peace. Our first client came in through the back entrance, half vampire, half witch, all sarcasm. He sat in the waiting room drinking blood from a to-go coffee cup and reading a tabloid upside down. You really take anyone? He asked when Ciro walked in. Not anyone, Ciro replied. Just the ones the world gave up on. The man looked around, unimpressed. I heard you save monsters. Ciro smiled. No. We remind them they have a choice. We didn't advertise. Didn't need to. Word spreads fast in certain circles. Cursed heiresses, disgraced angels, shapeshifters trying to navigate divorce. Every week brought someone stranger than the last, and every time I saw Ciro talk to them, really see them, I felt it again. That stillness he carried. That flame that didn't burn unless you needed it to. He was never just the client. He was the reason I stayed. One night, we sat on the roof of the office building, legs dangling over the edge, city lights humming below. Ciro passed me a beer. It was warm. He didn't notice. Remember when you told me I was your anchor? I asked. He nodded. I think I needed one too. I know. I looked over at him. He wasn't glowing, wasn't trying to be anything. Just a man in a black shirt, hair messy from wind, fingers tapping out a rhythm only he could hear. And I said it, back then. I thought I was protecting you. You were... No, I said. You didn't need saving. He turned, quiet. I did. He didn't speak right away. Just leaned in and rested his head on my shoulder, carefully, like the moment mattered. And it did. And here we were. Free. The sunrise crept up behind the skyline, soft gold, no drama. Just light, breaking things open. Ciro looked at it and said, almost to himself, every day I wake up and expect the world to end, and then I remember, he said, turning to me. You're in it. I kissed him. This time, no questions. Just truth. So here's the real story. He wasn't the one who needed a leash. I was the one who didn't know who he was. Who I was. But now I do. And damn it, he figured it out before I did.